Good morning, good afternoon. This is your roving reporter, Barbara Ann Rosenberg. And today we're roving to St. Michael's and then to Chestertown, both on the eastern shore of Maryland. Now, I want you to know that in the past I have only been there in the summertime when it is gorgeous. And guess what? In the winter, it's gorgeous too. A very different experience. Very different. Because in the summer you can hardly walk down the sidewalks without being crowded off. Spring and fall, I guess, or you run into a quieter time. But in the winter it is just lovely. There's some traffic on the streets. It's not like you're deserted, but it's peaceful somehow. You look at the sky, you look at the water, you look at the ducks, you look at the shops, which are charming in both places, and you eat in delightful restaurants. You stay, as we did, at the Inn at Perry Cabin, which is just a delight, an absolute delight of a place, as beautiful and as tranquil as any place could possibly be, with a marvelous chef and a beautiful dining room and beautiful guest rooms. Now, I've not stayed in Chestertown, but I will tell you they have good restaurants too. So let's go examine these places: the eastern shore of Maryland, St. Michael's, and Chestertown. We're here in St. Michael's. St. Michael's, you might think, is a town that time forgot. Well, in the summertime it's loaded with people, crawling with people who come in off boats and come in for the weekend. It's a beautiful town that really came into its own about the War of 1812. It started actually much earlier. But the War of 1812 was its high point because the British were shelling, and these wily eastern shore of Maryland people put lights up in the trees and hoisted them up at the top of masts so that the British would think that those lights were the houses, and they would shell high, and they overshot the town, and that's why it's still alive and kicking. It's a beautiful town, wonderful architecture, and now we're at the Maritime Museum for Chesapeake Bay, and we'll go take a look at what they have. And this is a 3-story lighthouse, quite typical of the kind of lighthouses that were all throughout Chesapeake Bay. But this one has been moved to the grounds of the Maritime Museum so that it won't crumble away, and people have an opportunity really to examine it. It's beautiful. It's not typical of lighthouses in other parts of the country, but it is unusual for Chesapeake Bay. Has its own style. Now we're looking at the figurehead for a Naval Academy ship, hand-carved and moved here, along with other relics. There are 18 buildings that were moved onto the grounds of this wonderful Maritime Museum. And this is kind of a centerpiece. Everybody comes over to look at it, and as you can plainly see why. And these are ships that are available for groups to take on cruises around the bay. This is a very protected harbor, which is one of the reasons that it's been so attractive to sailors. But it's a beautiful part of the bay. You go out from here and see all the lovely homes, old homes that have been here since the 18th century, 17th century, some of them, I guess. And there's a wonderful crab claw restaurant that people seem to love, and they come here in droves in buses as well as by boat. When you come by boat, you can pull right up to the dock and jump in and eat your crabs and have a grand old time. You either in, this is a lovely Victorian building that was either moved here or has been here all along, I'm not sure. But they've opened a museum store in it, and crammed with goodies it is. This area is known for its huge decoys, handmade decoys. They even have classes in making decoys for children and other people who are interested, and people buy them like crazy. They seem to like, well, you'll see the real geese on the hoof, and then you'll see the decoys. People to want to attract others, I guess, when they have open season for hunting in the fall. And here's the crab claw. It's called a restaurant now. It used to be just a shack here on the pier. But as you can see, it has grown and grown, and boy, have the numbers of people coming in here grown and grown. In the season, it's out of season now. It's opening March 5th, in case you want to run down here. Everything in St. Michael's is a little bit cute and quaint, including this information center. Look at it, little, tiny, charming, decorated within an inch of its life with flowers and bows, and here we are looking down the main street. So that information center is a good place to start and get a sense of what this town is all about, other than the museum, of course. And we'll walk down the main street and get a sense of it. See, there are famous people from this part of Talbot County, and that's where St. Michael's is, in Talbot County. And Frederick Douglass lived as a slave in St. Michael's area, and then became a very famous man, became a noted abolitionist, orator, and editor. This is a man that you hear about all through history in the history books, and he was a U.S. Marshal, as you see here, and the U.S. Minister to Haiti. He came a long way from being born in this little rural area of Talbot County to become a noted orator. And oddly enough, in a little town like this, there are a number of charming restaurants. This other named Morsels, which I think is just charming, for fine dining and spirits. And did you ever see a town of this kind, this size, this quaint, without antique shops? Well, St. Michael's has its share and more. So I'm going to give it a peek and see. I suspect the prices are probably pretty high, but never can tell. So I'll go give a look. And then this is the Brick House, as if somebody has to tell you. A bed and breakfast, and it also has stitches, needlecrafts. And then there's a cute guy on the front who's painting, because you have to take advantage of the off-season, I guess, to paint. And that's all he has. It's very lovely, though.
Thank you.
Another bed and breakfast here with fireplaces and vacancies. Well, I guess so at this time of the year. I'm sure in the summer it won't be. A bed and breakfast, Barrett's. It's just charming all the way down the street. Not a bed and breakfast, and certainly no McDonald's here on the main street. You have number 208 Talbot, which is considered to be one of the very upscale restaurants. Other than the place we're seeing, where we're staying, you'll see that in a little bit too. And this is at the very end of Tilligman Island, which is below St. Michael's, and protrudes out into the bay. This is kind of, the point of no return. A very bleak, and as you can see, very bleak and not deserted, because there are fishermen who live here, oystermen, crab boats, and so forth. But it's not a place for hooping it up on a Saturday night, I can tell you that. It is instead a place to come to contemplate waterfowl. They really are not terribly friendly to have you come way out here to the point, because there is a kind of rundown little inn. But it's lovely when you do get here. There's flocks of geese all over, swimming in the water, lone ones and flocks of them. Of course, there's geese all over this part of as you will see when we return to the hotel where we're staying. They come and roost there for the night. God knows, I don't know, maybe all for the whole winter. Speaking of geese, you've got whole flocks of them flying by, and they're not really going anyplace south at this time of the year. They're here. This is the wondrous, it's not a bed and breakfast for sure. They have a full dining room and all kinds of glorious amenities. This is the Inn at Perry Cabin, and it was named for Admiral Perry, the man who came here and built it as a small hotel. It's now got 41 rooms, and one more beautifully and gloriously decorated than the other. The man who had started it had served with Admiral Perry. This is, as I said, a big 1812 area. A lot of historical significance here. But let's take a look at the inn itself. It's wonderful. One of the prettiest places I've ever stayed. And this is the other side of the inn, right on the water. Did you ever see a more idyllic place? Even the geese like it here. I guess they come here to winter because, well, I've only been here 2 days, but they sure look like a fixture to me. They all look like, except they move, they look like decoys. These are Canadian geese. These aren't the white local ones. And my, how blue the water, how lovely, how tranquil. And now I think you can see why I say this is one of the prettiest inns I've ever stayed at, not just the location, but we'll go look inside after a while. This is a corner of one of the drawing rooms inside. You can't just call it a living room. It's much bigger, not really grand. It's very comfortable, very homey, actually. You see there's a fireplace in each of these sitting rooms and pictures and stuff, and it's all very tasteful. This is owned by Sir Bernard Ashley. You remember the Laura Ashley clothes, or maybe you don't. And you're seeing a lovely tea table. That's part of what happens when you come here. Have your breakfast, stay around for lunch, or make this your lunch. Most glorious assortment of cookies and fruitcake with marzipan, for which I am an absolute freak. It's almond paste, and I love it. And, of course, this is at Christmas time, so it may be especially festive. I don't think so. I think this tea table's pretty much the same year-round. And another view of a sitting room. You see there's all these nooks and crannies, and this is, again, this is another one, but there are several more where you feel comfortable. There's just artifacts of New England, maybe some of England as well, since after all, the management is directly from England, Scotland, Wales, all of it. Just, they know how to do it. The Inn at Perry Cabin. Just another example of hospitality, a big bowl heaped with apples, and I suppose whatever fruit is in season. And if you feel like playing a little snooker or pool or whatever you play on this table, here's that too. There's something to do all the time here at the same time. You can just lay back and do nothing. I love it here. Well, we've left St. Michael's on our way back to Philadelphia and just couldn't resist Chestertown, Very historic town, very historic area. And you can see here, well, it says there's Worrell's Tavern. I guess Worrell's Tavern is long gone. But this is the site of the tavern where George Washington dined and slept on his return from Philadelphia in 1791 while he was President of the United States. So we'll go take a look at, see what else there is in the town, but this is a good beginning. And in Chestertown, which was founded in 1706 as the port of Chester, this is the Chester River, which was the chief means of transportation to this part of Maryland. In about 1928, the automobile and the railroad took over, and the river was no longer viable. Well, plenty of pleasure boats come to stop in Chestertown because it is such a charming place. We'll go walk around the town a little bit, see how it looks, but in the meantime, we're here on a pier where the birds seem to like it, and the fishermen like it. There are people behind us, really, here, fishing for, I don't know what, maybe striped bass, maybe, I don't know, maybe nothing. Maybe it's just the joy of putting out a fishing pole and sitting there and watching it. These are the fishing poles I was talking about. They look like they're out there for serious fish. Let's ask the man who's sitting here and watching them. Want to tell me what you're fishing for, sir?
I'm fishing for catfish.
Catfish. How big do you suppose they'll be?
About 3 to 4 pounds or better.
Oh my, so that's good fishing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not too much work. How about, do they give you a fight when you try to bring them in?
Yeah, they get a real good fight.
Do they? Well, that's fun. How often do you come down here and fish?
Every once in a while. I drive over from Baltimore County, Maryland.
Aha. Well, so there is more and more of an attraction to keep this lovely town alive.
Yeah, sure is.
This beautiful home, known as the Wicks House, was built in 1767. It has 15 fireplaces inside, which unfortunately we're not going to see since people live here. It's really one of the finest examples of architecture in the town. It has a boxwood garden, and I can begin to smell it here, but then alongside of the house, it's full of boxwood, and I don't know whether you know what it smells like, but it's really kind of, some people like it. I happen not to. But it looks very pretty, and it's green all winter. Look at this lovely place. In perfect condition. I'm sure it's maintained equally well inside. 15 fireplaces. They believed in keeping warm. And here are the boxwoods. They've probably been around as long as the house has. They don't look too pretty right now. It's that time of the year. They surely do have that fragrance that I said people either love or don't. I happen not to be a lover. It smells like there's a bunch of cats around here. And this is Water Street. Water Street, which, as you may be able to figure out, is down close to the water. And all these big, beautiful homes were built along here for a ship captain and some of the major merchants in town who wanted to keep an eye on what was happening to their goods, I guess, as they came up the river. Nevertheless, they built very grand houses, which are with intricate brickwork, and they're still in magnificent repair with people living in them. And I wouldn't mind one myself. So you'll look for Water Street when you come down High Street, the main street in town, and see all these marvelous houses. And this is a gentleman who lives right here on Water Street. Let's hear what he has to say about living in this lovely historic town. What's your name, sir?
I'm Kirk Wade, and it is a lovely, lovely town, and you're on probably the nicest block in the nicest county in Maryland. This is Water Street. We bought this house about 3 years ago, and we've been restoring it. And this time of year...
I thought maybe you'd lived here since it was original.
I'm not that old looking, please. Please, I like to think I'm younger than that looking. But what we like this time of year to joke about, but it's really true, is that this is like Bedford Falls. And It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. You go up the little town up here, and there's a savings and loan on the corner, and the lights are strung up, and it's just as pretty as it can be. So I hope that you and your friends come back lots more time and see our pretty little Chestertown, also known as Bedford Falls.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And right here in the middle of historic Chestertown is the Imperial Hotel, which looks for all the world like it belongs here, and it does. It's only been here since 1905. It certainly doesn't have the cachet of antiquity that the other buildings do, but it looks like it belongs, and inside it's really quite charming and good. So when you're down here, this is a good place to stop for lunch. I don't know about dinner, but we just had a very satisfactory lunch. So let's go on and take a look at some of what else there is in town. And this is a street where there are all kinds of charming things. People want to walk along and sort of nose around and buy charming cross-patch antiques where the name is just as charming as what they have inside. Just a few little pieces of this and that, not major. And then there's another one called Village House. And there's a lot of lawyers interspersed too, but it is a charming street. It just sort of says, somehow, come in and buy something from me. I have very cute things inside. So it's worth walking down here to complete a visit to Chestertown, which is in and of itself full of charm. All right, now you've been with the roving reporter doing travel and table tips both to the both on the eastern shore of Maryland, but both to St. Michael's with all its charm, and Chestertown with plenty of charm too. So I hope you had a good time. I know we certainly did. I'll be going back in the summertime. Maybe you'll come with us. Look forward to it. Bye, Barbara Ann Rosenberg, your roving reporter.